we've got our very own Dr. Kohli here joining us. Okay, so believe it or not, more than 15 million people, about 6% of Americans, have reported taking weight loss drugs, and 25,000 people are starting these drugs every week. But a new analysis found that many of those taking the drugs are stopping too soon. That's interesting. So, Dr. Kohli, what do you think about this analysis, and why are people stopping so soon?
I mean, I'm fascinated by it because the way the drug works, you actually start it at the lowest dose, 0.25, and then in a month you double it to 0.5. Another month you go to 1, then another month you go to 2. So it takes 3 months for you to actually get to the target dose. And what the analysis showed us is that 30% of people have jumped ship by the first month.
Because it's not instant enough?
And 58% of people before they get to the 3 months. So before they're even letting it get to the target dose, they're quitting. And so it can't work if you're not hanging in there. Now, we're quick to blame people, but they're really not actually quitting for side effects. They're quitting really because they don't have access to care. So if you look at the underprivileged communities, the ones that don't go to the doctors as often, those are the people that are quitting more. In fact, the ones that had follow-up visits with their doctors were 60% more likely to stay on it. The ones that got prescribed by a specialist were significantly more likely than a primary care because they probably had more time to learn about how it works. So part of this is our impatience, but part of this is, I think, a failure of the medical system. We're not explaining to people. It doesn't start dropping the weight the first day you take it. We build you up to it.
Well, I mean, not only does this drug help you lose weight, but apparently it makes you stop drinking, or at least turns that down a little bit. Are they studying this drug, and do you know what that might be caused by?
Yeah, so in the clinical trials they were studying for diabetes and obesity. People started quitting their other bad habits, their alcohol, their shopping, their marijuana, even heroin, cocaine, opiates.
Wow.
It even worked for those. And the theory here, and what they've really sort of proven in the animal models, is that it modulates the dopamine reward system. So dopamine is a chemical in our brain. Get a little happy feeling, that's dopamine, and that makes us feel happy. So people who, were addicted to food, for example, would eat the food, get the dopamine hit, and feel good about it. Now, if I turn the volume down on that dopamine response, it doesn't just work for food, it works for everything else in your life that you may be getting.
What about sexual desire? Sorry to take it there, but I think if everything gets turned down, I'm like, does your libido?
Well, and you talk about that, Dr. Jackson, but it's actually really true. We're seeing changes in libido occurring in people who lose weight. So it's really a provocative question about, this is not just a weight loss drug. Could be a psychiatric drug to help people who are struggling with addiction. But my real question is, what's the dose of it? How long does the effect last? Can you just take it for a little bit, get off of whatever you're addicted to, and then be better? Or do you have to stay on it for the rest of your life? We have to answer all these questions, but I'm optimistic we can start using this in people who are struggling with addiction.
Incredible.
That's amazing.
Absolutely. All right, Doc, let's switch gears here. Do you know who this is?
Hand puppet?
A pelican. You look so...
You did that earlier.
Thank you.
Couldn't you have switched
You still
it
didn't
up?
know it.
First of all, I warned you before the segment that I was going to do it again.
I know, and I wanted to act like I'd never seen it
Have you ever seen Salt Bay?
I haven't.
All right.
Oh,
Anyway.
God, she didn't even get it.
By the way,
go home
the
and read
booth
about
just said Salt Bay in my ear like a million.
All right, let's get to the question. There's a new study that talks about people who always salt their food, and I'm insulted if I cook for somebody.
Good one. Insulted?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Your turn's next.
Okay.
So I'm always...
Salted.
Yeah, I don't like when people automatically salt their food without tasting it.
Even if you salt your food after you taste it, you cannot salt your food because the amount of salt that we get already in the things, 9 out of 10 Americans consume too much salt, and our average salt consumption is twice what it should be. We should be eating no more than a quarter, 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt in our entire 24-hour.
What about a sea salt bath? Because I know our skin is our largest organ.
Like an Epsom
and
salt?
I do sea salt.
Salt.
It helps recharge.
Like the ocean. Whoa.
It helps recharge the body.
I'm okay with sea salt baths. Yeah, because the absorption of salt through your skin is not what worries me.
Okay.
It's going to exfoliate your skin. Too many of those can be drying because salt can be drying.
What about sea salt instead, or Himalayan instead of the pink salt? That looks better.
So Himalayan is less dense, right? Then you think about the table salt that's really dense. That's from seawater. Himalayan salt is less dense, but it's got a tiny amount less sodium, but it still has too much sodium. So you salt your food regularly, you're going to have an association of a 41% increased risk of stomach cancer, heart disease, kidney disease, headaches, water retention, hypertension, high blood pressure, all kinds of
Stay away from the salt unless it's in a bath. Okay.
This might be Dr. Kohli's last segment, and we all would understand it.
Thank you, Dr. Kohli. We appreciate you. DBL Nation, follow Dr. Kohli on social media at Pyle Kohli MD. Also, be sure to subscribe to her YouTube page.
Yes.
Plus, check out her podcast, Heart of Medicine, wherever you listen to your podcast. Thank you again, Doc.
Thanks, Doc.